So, this is Nafisa Joseph. Just as the Holy Family had Joseph as the superior of the Holy Family, and Joseph of Egypt of the 12 tribes of Israel, he was persecuted by his brothers so badly that they made his coat red with the blood of lambs and told their father Joseph is dead. They sold him into slavery to become a slave in Egypt. The Egyptian woman of his owner accused him of sexual misconduct, accused him of being a sexual predator and assaulting her, and he was found guilty of that and sent to prison, but became like a leader in prison, which that's very difficult to be a respected sex offender in prison, especially an Egyptian who's assaulting a Hebrew, getting assaulted by a Hebrew slave, because the Egyptians considered Hebrews inferior. And then Joseph becomes the man who controls Pharaoh, and the Egyptians believed Pharaoh was the incarnation of God. He was the mediator between the spirit world and the material world, and Egypt was the greatest superpower on earth. And Joseph is the one who saved that superpower and used it to do things that you don't see doing between like Jews and Christians and Muslims. You don't see them working so well with a person who's with idolaters like Pharaoh. Pharaoh and Joseph was considered God to the Egyptians, and I don't or no, Pharaoh was considered God to the Egyptians, and Joseph followed a Hebrew religion that was totally opposed to that, because the Egyptians worship a lot of deities, and it's a female-dominant religion. The eye of the sun god Ra is their main god deity is the sun god. Like Japan, a female-dominant religion where the sun goddess is made by men to be greater than all male deities. Well, the sun god Ra, he's kind of like Charles Manson in the sense that Charles Manson went to prison because it was women fighting his battles, doing his dirty work. It was women who were doing the scary stuff, and Charles Manson goes to prison because they're blindly obeying him. But so the Eye of Ra are actually female entities that fight battles better than men. And back when the Arab nations were a female-dominant when they practiced a female-dominant religion, that's when the Arab nations were the greatest superpowers in the world, like the Babylonian Empire, for instance. The Babylonian Empire used to do the opposite of what Muslims do. They had a lot of respect for women who were unveiled. They called it holy and sacred when women were unveiled in the temples of Inan. The Arabs of the Babylonian Empire were the most notorious for saying a woman's sexuality is a very sacred, holy thing, and a woman's body is very holy. So actually, back when the Arabs thought that it was really sacred, holy for a woman to be nude and unveiled, they were a lot happier, and they had a lot more respect for women. And the Lady of Victories that the Babylonians prayed to for victory, that made them the greatest superpower. They called her Queen of Heaven, and that's one of the titles of the Virgin Mary. Lady of Victories was a title of the Virgin Mary that won the Battle of Lepanto, and that was a battle involving boats. And Inanna's scriptures call her holy vulva the boat of heaven. She says, "Who will plow my holy vulva, my sacred vulva, the boat of heaven?" Trying to draw attention to. So the Arabs used to be so notorious for being the exact opposite. Now they make women cover and veil, and they persecute women, and they're the biggest. They have the most bigotry, and they will never be great. It's holding the people back. In Saudi Arabia, you cannot have churches, you cannot have synagogues. And so Nafisa Joseph showed that a total idolatrous Pharaoh who is worshipped as God has a Hebrew slave convicted of being a sexual predator, and then Pharaoh, who is the god of the Egyptians, tells all the Egyptian people, "Go to Joseph, because I'm giving Joseph control of all of my household and all of my possessions," okay? And Nafisa Joseph was a close relative of the Nobel Prize winner Tagore, who was the first. Tagore was the first person to win the Nobel Prize in literature who was outside of Europe. Okay, so Mussolini wanted him to go to Italy, and when he went to Italy, he was surprised, and he lost fans for singing the praises of Mussolini. And Tagore actually wrote multiple national anthems. Okay. So, and then Nafisa Joseph dies on Mussolini's birthday, tragically. Unfortunately, it's a suicide while she's young and beautiful. She's one of India's Charlie's Angels, and they call it cats, okay? So tabby cats have M's on their foreheads, okay? And Mary asked for an M on the back of the miraculous medal, and Mussolini put M's everywhere, and Mussolini marked on Rome National Hug a Stuffed Animal Day, and the first manufactured stuffed animal was a tabby cat inspired by a tabby cat named Caesar. So the tabby cats of Caesar, have an M, all tabby cats have an M on their forehead, so it can be for Mary, Mussolini, or whatever. So the thing is, I think what we need to do is we need to start getting away from dogmas. The female dominant religion of Shinto they've done something ingenious. They have a tomb for Jesus Christ. They declare that Jesus actually went to Japan. I wouldn't be surprised if an incarnation of Jesus went there, or somebody wanting to get the Japanese to think Jesus went there, because there's a religion in Japan that, if it was practiced the right way, there's great opportunities, because God chose, in the Japanese believe that there was a male deity who decided, I don't want to be proud and wrathful and narcissistic and misogynist. And so instead of being this God who's so jealous of the queens of heaven, people burning incense to the queen of heaven, or being jealous of Babylon the Great, the whore of Babylon, how about be a man who's a God who's lovable and humble and creates a woman who have been the weaker gender, taking last place in so many areas, create a woman goddess when you're the male deity and say, I want her to be more important and greater than me, okay? That's a more lovable God. And the Japanese, they enshrine all kinds of people in their shrines, that you don't have to be a canonized saint to be your name written down in the Book of Souls, millions of them. Everyone who dies for the emperor, every war casualty in Shinto gets enshrined. And so we are reborn. We want to be Scorpios, Sagittarius. I do Leah, Michelle, Cosette. These are Leah, Michelle, Cosette. Okay, Leah, lioness. Michelle means who is like God. Cosette means pet lamb. Leah was the one who raised Joseph. This is Nafisa Joseph. Joseph of the Old Testament had a dream of the sun and the moon and the stars bow to Joseph of Egypt, okay? And in Joseph of Nazareth, Mary, who worked a miracle of the sun as Our Lady of Fatima, and Jesus and Mary are both called Morning Star. They kind of bowed down to Joseph, okay? Joseph is called the terror of demons, the superior, the image of God the Father even. So Nafisa Joseph, I called her Chief Joseph because I enshrined her. I thought, you look so good in a red bikini. It doesn't actually stir up any lust, because I look at it and I see total respect. I have mad respect for her, and she's got all these links to Benito Mussolini dying on his birthday and stuff like that, and being such a close friend. Oh, and she loved Gandhi. She was always clutching images of Gandhi when she was nervous backstage. Gandhi was the favorite visitor of Mussolini, who left the biggest impression on Mussolini. And St. Olive's Church, the feast day is the death of Nafisa Joseph, and the birthday of Mussolini is the feast day of that church. And Benito Mussolini visits that church on the birthday of Gandhi, okay? So we are all being born today. The anniversary, this YouTube uploads slow, so this YouTube is going to say it was made the day after. But what we know is it's going to be 11/22 somewhere in this world anyways, okay? So it's 11/22 anniversary of Leah Harvey Oswald. Lee means Leah, Harvey means battle-worthy, Oswald means divine power. Lee Harvey Oswald his Chinese zodiac is a bunny, so before Mickey Mouse was Mickey Mouse, he was a lucky bunny named Oswald. And JFK is called the Beast because he got 666 votes at the Democratic Convention, dies of a fatal head wound, and the Beast of the Apocalypse is supposed to die of a head wound and rise from the dead. But we are trying to save the Beast. Beauty and the Beast. The Beast does not have to be cursed forever and die a cursed, miserable death. Babylon the Great, the woman that rides the Beast, she can be Belle, who kisses the Beast with a kiss of true love, and he turns into a handsome prince, okay? Because the city of Nineveh, the scriptures, book of Revelation, Christians think because the book of Revelation says something, therefore it has to be done. That is so not true. The Bible is so full of many verses, it can be proven that it doesn't happen. Like, faith of a mustard seed can move mountains. Ask anything of the Father in my name and I will do it for you. We all know that's not true, okay? It doesn't come true. So the Bible's very confusing. That's why Shinto, the female dominant religion of Shinto, says defiantly, we're not going to have scriptures where we believe they're without error, because what's okay at one time is not okay at another time, and one action that's very wrong in one circumstance is very right in the other one. And the Bible, the man, some of the people that got rewarded with the greatest blessings, like Jacob and Leah, the patriarch Israel, that the 12 tribes of Israel descend from, the name of the bride of God, the nation of Israel, in the scriptures, and Jesus and the prophets descend from him. They descend from him because he committed idolatry with a woman, had put her above God. If you put anything above God and have loyalty to something and have no loyalty to God and listen to someone telling you to break God's rules, that is idolatrous. That is like he had like a Norman Bates type of obsession with his mother that turned into irresponsible criminal activity that God actually rewarded him for. And his mother, Rebecca, said, let the curse and punishment for Jacob's sins be upon me. She became the female Messiah, and there's a lot of women who are like that, the Rebeccas or the naughty Rebeccas, or like the Clara Petaccis. Clara Petacci, Mussolini means Jacob. He loved his mother, kind of rejected his father. Jacob deceived his father, stole from his father, stole his blessing through deception and lies. He goes on to fight with God and win, contender with God, okay? And Shinto dominant religion, where Amaterasu represents the sun disk. Well, Israel, before it was the Star of David representing Israel, the sun disk, the Japanese flag, represented Israel because Jacob is Israel. The sun disk is the symbol for Jacob. The sun disk is the symbol for the female dominant religion of Shinto. And the sun disk is Jacob was rewarded by God for having no loyalty to God. He earned the name contender with God. He practiced forbidden magic sorcery to change colors of sheep to deceive someone for financial gain. He did a whole bunch of things that you really shouldn't be doing, and yet God was blessing him and rewarding him for it, because God God wants you to chill, because there's so many times God does the opposite of what he does at other times. That's why the female dominant religion of Shinto, female ingenuity, divine femininity, moms are like dads, only they're smarter than dads, okay? The divine feminine religion is responsible for a lot of things, like in the Bible, Cyrus the Great, okay? He was praising the Babylonian deities, the female dominant enemies of God. The whore of Babylon is called the goddess Inanna of sexuality, and the goddess of politics, the goddess of war, the goddess of victories, the goddess of beauty, the goddess of the morning star, the goddess of another Lucifer. Like when in the Old Testament, a lot of people don't realize when God is talking about how you have fallen, the morning star, he was talking about a Babylonian king. They would wear the morning star on their shirts, and the morning star is called Lucifer, but the morning star can also be called Jesus. And the morning star can be called sometimes the Virgin Mary, but the morning star is also Venus, the Roman goddess of beauty, love, and so why don't we all just be children of the morning star, children of the evening? It looks like we need unity, okay? The female Messiah is the female half of God. The dead Kennedys. St. John Kennedy was the one that Jesus said to John, woman, behold your son, son, behold your mother. And then John wrote the book of Revelation, and I keep hearing voices telling me John Kennedy wrote the book of Revelation. He's St. John of the Apocalypse, okay? The beast with the head wound, but he's going to change it because God told Jonah to go to Nineveh and say, Nineveh is going to be destroyed. And he kept saying that every day, exactly when Nineveh is going to be destroyed. And then the day came, it didn't get destroyed. Jonah wanted to kill himself because he just sat there for like 40 days or more, traveled all that way to prophesy daily, and everything he said didn't come to happen. So the same thing about Babylon the Great and the Antichrist and the reign of the mark of the beast and slaughtering all kinds of people. There can be an anti-Antichrist, okay? You can kill the beast with love. Some women can kill the beast with love that men cannot do, okay? Women can have more power. I know this for certain. the right woman can motivate me to do deeds that no man is going to motivate me to, and she can do it with it not using much effort if she's the right person. There's certain women you can just walk into a room with them and you're in an excruciating pain with a long day at work, walking on 2 torn meniscuses, a torn ACL, and a fractured knee, and just being in the same room with that woman when she's effortlessly not even doing anything. Maybe she smiles, or just talking to her, making eye contact, can make so much of that pain go away better than freaking fentanyl and morphine, and bring joy. The right women have a power to effortlessly do things that no man can do with great effort. So praying to Jesus and the Father and the Holy Spirit, the male deities, was just pissing me off, and the Bible was pissing me off. And then women started visiting me, and I started realizing visions I was having in my head and the letters I was writing, leading to all kinds of coincidences. And so I enshrine her wearing the red, okay? I go outside and I see a red pack of cigarettes, and I knew that has something to do with me just enshrining a woman wearing a red bikini. So I pick up the pack of cigarettes. I see an Indian on the cover. Nafisa Joseph is an Indian. It says Smokin' Joe. Okay, smokin' means sexy, and Joe means Joseph, okay? And on her birthday of Nafisa Joseph, I was talking about Chief Joseph. I committed my worst crime on March 3rd, the birthday of Chief Joseph, and I said I keep pictures of Chief Joseph taped on my wall. Nafisa Joseph's the Indian Chief Joseph from India, and Chief Joseph is the Indian Chief Joseph from America, where people don't realize that they're not Indians and they're not red, but oh well, they call him the Red Napoleon. So Nafisa Joseph is the Red Napoleon. She wears the red brawn bikini. You know, the red coats were the enemies of America, but now the red bikinis are not enemies of America, because the Republican Party is the color red, and they are the Democrats tend to be the ones who give our enemies of America the gunpowder and help them fight and defeat us. So it's the Republicans defending us, the red party. So the red bra, the red bikini for the Republican Party, but also the Philomena cord is red and white, where the white represents purity, the red represents martyrdom and suffering and shedding blood and stuff like that, blood, sweat, and tears. And there can be white martyrdom, which is you don't die but you suffer. That's white martyrdom. And then red martyrdom is you lose your life. Okay. And the flags of the American flag is the American flag has the Star Spangled Banner has red and white stripes. Okay. And of a Messiah, it says, by his stripes you are healed. The American flag is the flag of Columbia. Our Lady, the female personification of the United States. A lot of victimized women who are messiahs, okay? Dead to atone for sins of the world, okay? Victim souls, victim lambs of God, okay? The stripes of the American flag, by their stripes you are healed. Those are the Philomena stripes on the American flag, because that's the colors of a Philomena cord that I found last Memorial Day on the sidewalk, and that's a very strange thing to find, a Philomena cord on the sidewalk on Memorial Day, which is the anniversary of Ted Bundy's first victim dying here, who was from the Twin Cities, and there's a shrine to her at Golden Valley Humane Society. Elizabeth Potter Perry, I call her Queen Elizabeth, and Queen Elizabeth, Spider-Man was from Queens, and Queen was a British band from London, and I call these girls the Capitol Hill Queens. So anyway, she's Saint Joseph. She did die by suicide, but the thing is, God chooses very unlikely people for great, great tasks. Joseph of Egypt was not just being a Hebrew disqualified him from having much influence over Egyptians. They didn't even want to eat with Hebrews. Then he becomes a slave of the Egyptians. That's even worse than being being a Hebrew. Now you're a Hebrew slave. Then he becomes a Hebrew slave who is found guilty of assaulting and sexually assaulting Egyptian owner's wife. And he's in prison, found guilty of it, okay? So he went from being the lowest of the low to being the controller, the least person in the whole empire, a sex offender, Hebrew slave, found guilty of sexually assaulting an Egyptian owner's wife, okay? He becomes the owner of Pharaoh, the guy that Pharaoh acts like Joseph's slave. He gives control of all of his household and possessions to Joseph, tells everybody go to Joseph, and they're probably wondering, dude, the dude's a convicted sex offender, a Jew that sexually assaults Egyptian women, and he was a freaking slave, and Pharaoh is God, and he's superior race, and he's an Egyptian, and Pharaoh and Joseph got along really well. So it's a sign of a pagan religion where that is female dominant, where the Eye of Ra, the women that fight the battles of Ra, are Charlie's angels, okay? Because Charlie had angels. Nafisa Joseph played as a woman who does a man's job and fights battles better than a man, okay? It's unfortunate that she hung herself, but the strongest man in the world committed suicide, and God helped him do it. Samson, he was from the tribe of Dan, the day-night tribe, the Scorpio tribe. Leah Costet's zodiac is the Scorpio, okay? I became a Scorpio yesterday and a Sagittarius. And Samson pushes over the Temple of Dagon, killing more people than both World Trade Center attacks. And he prayed to God that he would die. And he prayed for a suicide, a suicide mission, a kamikaze mission. And he died killing 3,000 people, more than both the World Trade Center and Pentagon all combined, and he did it with his bare hands, okay? So he was a suicide kamikaze. If God helps a man, a very anointed, the strongest man God ever made that billions of people believe actually existed, God wants him to commit suicide. It means there's some people that commit suicide and they're actually like extremely strong people, because the strongest person in the world committed suicide. And actually, Jesus Christ, if you think about it, it was kind of suicide, because he said, nobody takes my life from me, but I lay it down for others and humanity, okay? And so Nafisa Joseph has a St. Joseph's hospital for suicides, and a lot of things, but this is, YouTube's gotten long. She died with one of the other India's Charlie's Angels, also known as cats. And it's very odd because there's only 3 Charlie's Angels in India's Charlie's Angels, and 2 of them hung themselves while they were still young and beautiful and the envy of everybody, and nobody had a clue these young, beautiful girls were wanting to kill themselves. And the message they have for you is that a lot of people dislike somebody they're really jealous of, like Cain murdered Abel because of the first murder in the Bible is about jealousy, okay? And sometimes you see a beautiful supermodel like Nafisa Joseph or Kuljit Randhawa, the other girl that hung herself of India's Charlie's Angels.